Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of me critiquing your designs. I enjoy these. It's giving back a bit, but the enjoyment is actually seeing young people who are fascinated about design, car design especially. I'm enjoying these. I love getting your designs. It's hard to filter through all of them, but I'm managing to do it, and we're able to choose the best designs that I think will give you, in general, great feedback. So let's get on to the first one today. The first one I'm going to critique is from Philip Setnans. Now, I've recently done a review on Justin Bieber's conversion with West Coast Customs. Perhaps Justin should have seen this one. I'm sure he would have probably been very excited to see it because it is quite nice for a 16-year-old. You're already doing better than I was at 16, so it's a good start. But there are a few issues that you have to be aware of even though you're at this young age. When you design a car from a three-quarter view, you always have to remember where the center line of the car is and how much plan view. In other words, how much curvature you're going to put on the front of the car. If it's a brick, or basically a square cube or whatever, then it's very easy to draw. But as soon as you start looking at a car from the top view, and you realize that the front perhaps has a little bit of curvature, let's say this is the center line, this is your front wheel here, you're going to need to show something in your perspective drawing that reflects the far side when you're looking at it in a curve. So if you're standing back here, you're going to see much more of this half of the car than you are of this side of the car. You can see that the amount of surface that you see here from the angle that you're looking means that you're going to have to foreshorten the opposite side with respect to the center line. So you've done that. What I would do, Philip, is foreshorten the opposite side, and remember that all your lines on the vehicle in any view you do go to a common vanishing point. So if you're working in this angle here, you're curving probably the opposite side a bit too high up. You're creating a different vanishing point that doesn't relate to the other vanishing points. So these lines are going through in that direction there. You want all the lines here more or less to head off to that same vanishing point. So you can see here, you're lifting it too high on the opposite end. You want to keep it pretty much in line with the other ones. So you've got something a little bit less kicked up, a little bit less tilted on that side. The grille, what we try to do when we design in perspective like this is we try to accentuate certain areas that are closer to the eye. That's why we draw them in perspective, which means that the elements of design that are closest to you get the most detail. Now, if you're going to design it in this perspective here, you want to concentrate pretty much on this area of the design. Everything else can sort of start to fade away and you pick it up with the other perspective, as I said. So basically what you're doing is drawing the eye of the observer into one certain area of the vehicle. You go highly detailed, highly contrast with darker and lighter colors, and that will help you to establish sort of a priority when you look at somebody's sketch. That is the area that we're focusing in on. Your peripheral vision sort of makes this fade out to the side. So you have a very expansive, very wide front bonnet, which is good. We'll carry that center line through, and you've got pretty good proportions. But then you get to the roof. Now, if you had a roof this flat, you would probably have a swimming pool after it rains, a little thin sheath of water. You want to always give a bit of curvature to all your surfaces, all your surfaces. Do not believe it when people say that flat surfaces work. Now, a lot of the problems we have when we're first starting out is how do we show the difference between one side of the car and the other side of the car without drawing a line to distinguish that corner. The easy way to do it is, let's say you're hitting all the light on the front of the car, then you would basically just darken this area of the car a little bit more than there, and you can already see how the side of the car starts to look different from the front. So you're getting this contrast of faces to the sun, surfaces to the sun, to the light. Remember also that your darts should be fairly dark, and you can contrast that with light. So this is almost too extreme what you have here on the body, but if you bring that darkness a little bit further back like that, and you create, which I think is an undercut here, you create that to be fairly darker because it has even less light hitting on it, then you'll create something that starts to create an offset in the surfaces. And now let's move quickly to the rear view. Your rear 3/4 view shows a slightly different vehicle. What you want to do is bring that back and do that to it so you create a bit more surface like you're showing in the front 3/4. What I do like about your drawing here, Philip, is that you do have that Rolls Royce laid back feeling. It's all about presence when we're designing Rolls Royces. You're not in a hurry when you're in a Rolls Royce, you're enjoying the experience. And what you're showing here is a vehicle that really reflects that. It's got that laid back look to it. I love the covered rear wheels. That really elongates the length of the car, makes the car look even bigger. Thank you very much, Philip, for submitting these. I hope I've managed to give you a few tips that'll take this drawing a little bit to the next level. Don't worry, university is ahead of you. If you're really determined to be a car designer, all these tricks will be out there for you to learn, but it's a good way to start to understand dark to light or light to dark, but emphasize that. Don't outline your vehicles. Do that with shading, but that's all gonna come to you. So now let's move on to the next one. The next design is from Angelo Spolar. Wow, awesome. This almost looks professional right from the get-go. Remember, please, that you are not an engineer when you're a designer. You are not even an artist. You're not selling art, you're selling a piece of engineering sculpture. So even though this is an excellent piece of work, even at this stage here, you're losing personality in your design. You have to start wiring your brain at this young age to be super creative, looking at new ways of designing things, and just being crazy at your age. You don't want to be feasible at 16 years old. You're almost stepping into the shoes of a 30-year-old designer, much too young. Later in the much more advanced design stages, when you have to give it over to the engineers to develop or whatever, then you can start to design. But the important thing at 16 is to be super creative and super loose. You don't have to tighten up yet, and you shouldn't tighten up yet. So again, from a design point of view, excellent arrow. I can see already that you've studied what you're doing to give it that full-on race effect with your bubble top here. The actual profiles, you might be losing a bit of air contact here on the side. You want that to be pretty straight in a race car, just so you don't change the air pressure too much on the side. You're looking at some good principles in terms of volumes and proportions. I love the teardrop canopy sort of approach. You've got that going on, beautiful. You got your fender swells that are working very well. Not going too classic and too old school with a lot of roundness in this area. They're more flattened off. That's also very good, keeps the volumes down. Another thing that I would try to introduce here that you haven't, to help read the form a lot better, is shut lines. Now, you're not going to be able to get into the car unless you have a door, unless you come in from underneath, but I doubt that's going to be possible. You're a bit too low. But obviously show some shut lines that start to show that you're thinking about entry, exit. I don't know how you're going to do that, but you need to be able to remove panels in a race car. In case of an accident, you want to be able to pull the front nose off, the rear, whatever, but you need panels on the car. And that's a thinking designer's approach, where you start to think, where do I put the split lines to best represent the surface of the car, as well as the attachment points of different panels, to be able to access the car's innards, or to be able to repair a part very quickly or replace it. So remember, you need that. You'll probably be needing some type of headlamps in an endurance racing vehicle, and even tail lamps, so you want to be able to show that. You're not showing those, so at an early stage it's okay. There's just volumes, but you want to be able to show that you're thinking already when you're at this level, and mostly in the development level, the very early stages, what you're thinking. So headlights, elements like the cut lines, like I said, I wouldn't worry at all at this stage about any type of graphics or anything like that. So in that sense, you're being very controlled, very good at that sense of not showing too much stuff that you don't need on the vehicle. So thanks very much, Angelo, for submitting it. It's been fun looking at it. I enjoy the shape. I think it's nice and fresh. It looks great as a vehicle, as a racing vehicle. Extremely dynamic, beautiful shapes, beautiful forms. It's just, as a designer, you need to be able to do all of this in a very exciting sketch way of drawing, which will add uniqueness. So don't forget, your personality in the sketch is much more important than showing me a finished, very polished, very synthetic type of drawing. So I would prefer to see you push those limits a little bit more, expand as a designer in that direction, and you'll be getting a lot further in your career. So now let's move on to the last one today. This one is from Natasha. Natasha. Natasha's 19 years old, and I'm acting a little bit surprised, not acting, I am a little bit surprised. She's the first girl that we've had submit. So I'm looking at this from the viewpoint that she has not begun her transportation design studies. She's looking to go into transportation, and she'd like some words of wisdom, some advice on her current work and level. A couple things I can first of all say is presentation. So when you submit a design, first of all, for somebody to critique or to give you some opinions on, you don't want to make them small. You want to make them large. I typically try, when I design a car, I don't try to fit them all on the same page. I try to fit one view of the car as big as I can on a single sheet of paper. So anyways, when I'm looking at your car here, Natasha, I can start to see on this small scale even problems that if you blew them up, they would become even more apparent. You're putting your vanishing point much too close to the car. You have lines going very close together like that. So you exaggerate the design. There's a point where it's, okay, that's a lot, but you've gone past that point. So basically unwind a little bit on your perspective. So make it look a little bit less dramatic on this view here. On the front view, again, you have a very dramatic front perspective. It's nice to see you working like that, because I can see that you understand the principle of perspective, where you start wide and it becomes narrower and narrower. At 19, you want to make mistakes, believe me. You don't get better by not making mistakes. You get better by making a mistake and then knowing what to do to correct it. So that's very important on this view here. On the side view here, I mean, again, it's small, but I can see things that make the car, you have sort of, typically on the bottom of the car, you want to have it planted. So start with horizontal lines on the bottom of the car, not bowed, because that will make the car look like it's actually bowed. And you don't want that. The car has to look settled on the road. And as you go upwards, you can start to bow more and more and more. And that's what we call tension in the design. So you have some lines that are dynamic, some lines that are not dynamic. You have a very flat windscreen. Remember that when you draw from a side view, the center point of the glass of the windscreen, on the front windscreen, will be further ahead than on the side. You have the bow, the curvature of the glass when you look straight down. So that center line of the glass has to be in front of the A-pillar. So you see here, you're missing a bit of that. So what you should do is be a little bit more easy or flowing with your lines, Natasha. Don't make them so stiff, so exact. You're trying a lot with the colors to represent the surfacing. Excellent. Don't push yourself too much in terms of shading the car at the moment. That's probably one of the more higher levels that you will have to learn when you get into university, is actually how to actually use the markers, how to use chalk, or even shading on Photoshop, all those principles. But you will know eventually where to put the shading such that the curvature of the surface reflects that intent that you have. So you've got a very interesting D pillar or maybe C pillar treatment. Yeah, I think it's C, it might even be the B pillar. Maybe it's a two-seater, maybe it's a four-seater, but probably something that has never been done in the history of car design is the way you've treated the B or the C pillar in this area here. Be careful in that area. You don't have it going on in this one, in the rear 3/4 sketch, so maybe it's just a sketch where you're trying different ideas. That is very good, by the way, Natasha. It's very unusual. I typically never draw exactly the same car twice. And I say that because not that I can't, but because it's always an opportunity with the next sketch to try something else. Until you actually nail the design, and this is it, this is what I'm going to do. There's no reason to draw the same car twice. You want to keep experimenting, especially in the ideation or the conceptual or the theme phase where you're trying different ideas all the time. And again, your rear view is slightly different than what you're showing here. I think the important thing here is that you're showing variation in your cars, in your sketches, to give it sort of a different look in each angle. So in summary here, Natasha, good job for starting out, for being 19 and drawing already with color and with perspective in your mind, designing for a brand, trying to keep that BMW look to it. Your grill, by the way, is much better than the current grills on BMWs. I think we can all agree on that. But at the same time, I think you have to modernize the design a little bit. Designers are being hired to innovate, not to repeat. So try to find ways to introduce innovation into your design. Things that today seem, like I said, a little bit impossible, but that's the right direction for you to go as a designer. A lot of people are talented, but a lot more people get to the top through determination. So push through if you really want to be a car designer, and I can guarantee you, you will be, because I can see from your drawings here, you have the desire to do it. So good luck to you, and I hope the critique has helped you a little bit. And thanks everybody very much. That's it. We'll have more of these coming very soon. Thank you very much for watching today. Let me know through your comments below what you think, what you would like to learn more about. And again, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the future.